The 3764, Elvis Presley Boulevard. Hit it, Elvis. You got it, E.
Hey everybody, EP back on tour coming to you from our studios. We're coming to you with episode number 2 of what we're calling our Huntsville Sessions. And that's where we went back to Huntsville, Alabama after we went and documented the building previously. We were invited to go back and interview 5 different fans who had been to Elvis's shows in Huntsville and had other stories regarding Elvis. So this is episode number 2, and it's going to be with an incredible lady named Cosette O'Neill. And we had a great time with her, right? What a fireball. I mean, this lady, I think you could light a small city with her energy. It was incredible. And then what was really neat is after the interview, she invited us out to her farm, and we got to see her alpaca farm. And that was worth its weight in gold right there, just going out and meeting her family and seeing the animals, because we're big animal people. So that was a lot of fun. But anyway, stay tuned, and we're going to bring you Cosette O'Neill with a whole lot of fun stories, and we hope you enjoy it. So we're here with a friend of ours. Cosette is your name?
O'Neill.
O'Neill. And thank you for coming down here to the Von Braun Center and giving us some of your time today to share some really neat stories. I've heard bits and pieces of some of these stories, and I'm so excited. Like I told you before we started the interview, is our job is we're trying to create so many time capsules for the youth that are coming on today. Because as you well know, there's a lot of young fans that are coming, onto the Elvis scene. And one of the things that I think is vitally important is we take stories like the ones that you have to share, and we create a time capsule. So with no further ado, we're going to just say that you were born and raised in Memphis, and you just start talking.
Okay. My experience knowing about Elvis came at the age of 12. I was born in 1942, so that would be 54. And my mother's best friend's son was 16, and he found out about this teenager, Elvis Presley, and he was a fan, like wanted his hair with the long hair and dye it. But at that time, Elvis did not have black hair. It was just naturally brown and whatever. But it was long, and Elvis was really different. He would buy his clothes at Lansky Brothers on Beale Street and wear pink shirts. And he was Elvis. He was just different. That's where I first heard. We went to a concert that was at Ellis Auditorium here or in Memphis. And on the billboard was like 20 country and western singers. And Bob Neal was at one time Elvis' first manager. And he had other people, but it was mainly country. And so, but Elvis was the last. So we sat through a couple of hours of country and western. I'm sure they were great. I mean, all the famous ones. But all we wanted, and the auditorium was full of teenagers. And so Elvis came out, and I mean, he even, besides shaking his leg, he laid down, and that maybe you've seen a picture of him just wrapped his legs around the microphone and I'm telling you, I couldn't hear anything he sang because everybody was screaming. And I'm sitting there in the balcony, not the balcony, the edge, one of those seats that are elevated, not on the floor. And I kept thinking, I want to hear what he's singing. I want to hear him. And all these people were just, the kids were just going nuts. And so I couldn't even hear him. It was so loud. But I was with my mother and her best friend and the 16-year-old son of Dorothy's. And we just sat there in awe. And at 12 years old, I felt like I'm watching something unbelievable. I mean, I had that feeling like just, this is not going to stop. Then George Klein, who was Elvis's best man, was a disc jockey and had a radio station, and he kept Memphis informed when Elvis was home.
WHBQ, right?
Yeah, And George actually played at my high school prom at the Peabody Hotel in 1960. He was the DJ. And so anyway, but that way people were informed Elvis is home. So that's what started this gathering at the gates, and scream. They would scream and all that. Well, I only went out there 4 times because I grew up near the zoo, which was not near Highway 55 South, which is now Elvis Presley Boulevard. And also, I was young, so I'll go back a little bit. I did go and get my diary signed by Elvis at Bob Neal's record studio, record shop. George had said and my mother had picked me up at Snowden School. George said, Elvis is there signing autographs at downtown Bob Neal's record store. Go down there and get an autograph from Elvis Presley. So here I am. I'm 12 and he's 19, or maybe I was 13 by then and he was 20. And when we got there, they were about to close. And I didn't even see anybody but Elvis standing by the counter. Nobody was in there. And I went up and I just handed him my diary and he signed it. He didn't say anything to me and I couldn't speak. But obviously he was so shy at 19. Anyway, that was my first encounter. Another time we're driving down Union Avenue and see him in his pink Cadillac convertible. And I say, Mama, hop, there's Elvis. Hurry up, get me, up to his. And I rolled down the window and I hollered, Elvis, you're the best. And he said, you too, baby. God, he's had personality. Anyway, so we'll move on. It was not unusual. Then, like I say, I went out there on Sunday, July 1957, with my mother and my girlfriend Kay, and there was a crowd there. And so Elvis was at Graceland, and Lamar Fike, who worked for Elvis, comes up and starts talking to us. Now, we're both 15 and hadn't started to high school yet. Just this was all July. And it was about 7 o'clock on a Sunday. And Lamar goes and says, if you'll wait around, now, first it's 4 o'clock. He says, if you'll wait around, Elvis will come out and take you motorcycle riding. And of course, we just, oh gosh, Mama, we gotta stay. We stayed till 7. Elvis never showed. Lamar was just talking to the young girls. All right, so we go along. Just, I'm not sure of the date. I think it was like that Sunday, maybe Tuesday, no, Friday night. Anyway, it's in the letter when we were, but it was the end of July. We decided to go to a movie on Lamar Avenue, which was on the way to Elvis's. Okay, this was not where we normally went to a movie, but it was my best friend Kay Brist and then 2 of her neighbor friends that we were in high school, going to high school. Okay, before school started, before 10th grade. Anyway, we go to the movie and we get out about 9:30 or something. And Kay's mother picked us up and we begged her, please take us out to Elvis's. So here's the second time we go out there. And of course there's a gang of people. I go up and Elvis's uncle, Vester, was the gate man. So I'm 15 by then, and go up and start talking to him about Elvis, and he said, stand right here, Elvis is coming. He just had breakfast at Chenault's. That was about 10 o'clock or 10:30. That's what he would do, sleep all day, and then go out to eat. He liked Chenault's, and he says, he's going to be here in 5 minutes, and I'm going to tell him something. You stand there, then you can go talk to him at the car. So, okay, that's what happened. He drives up, and Uncle Vester goes over, and then I follow, and Vester leaves, and I stick my head in the window, and I say, hi, Elvis, where were you last Sunday? And I said, we were told you were going to take us motorcycle riding. And he said, who told you that? Now, he's 22 by then, 7 years older than me. And I said, Lamar did. And Lamar was in the back seat. And he says, Lamar, why do you tell these girls stuff? You never told me. I didn't even know. And I said, well, we waited 3 hours. So anyway, in the front seat was also a movie star that was in Rebel Without a Cause named Nick Adams. Mm-hmm. And he had a TV show, The Rebel, at the time. And he and another guy were in the front seat. So Elvis looks over, and I'm still got my head in the window. And Elvis looks over to Nick and says, watch this. And he turns his head and he kisses me on the leg. And he just showing off.
Right.
Okay. 2 girls that had, well, won't even go, but back then they had pierced earrings with crosses. They were from Humes. We were from Central. Anyway, they got in the back seat, and there were all of his guys, too. It must have been a stretch. It was a black Cadillac, I know that. I said, Elvis, how come those girls can go up to the house and we can't? Now, I knew I had to put myself forward, or else I can't be shy like I was. So he said, who? And he looked, oh, them, he says. And I said, well, why can't we go? He said, well, hop in. So I got in right behind him, and then Kate crawled over me, and she sat in George's lap. I was next to George Klein. Elvis drives up, and as he starts the Cadillac, he goes, everybody come on. Now there's about 45 people out there. Mm. But Kay's mother, for some reason, she went to a payphone to call my mother to say the girls won't be home till Elvis lets them out. They are inside Graceland with a bunch of people. And she said, I don't know what time we'll be home. Ms. Brisk could have gone. There was other married couples. There was, like I say, 40 people walked up there, and we all went into the living room. Elvis was on the white sofa. Here's the coffee table, and I'm on the floor right there. Anyway, the Elvis I knew was fun, loving, generous, to let the strangers in. And he said, shh, my parents are upstairs, you gotta be quiet. So then he takes us all downstairs to the pool room and the TV room, and on the wall are all of his gold records. And that night, he really did. He stayed with us more than anybody, and he was showing us the records, gold records. And I said, well, are they really records? Can you play them? And he said, why would I do that? It's gold. I said, I don't know. I was just trying to say something. We go and we sit on the floor in the TV room, and throughout the whole time, he would sing parts of songs because there was a record going on, like A Little Darling. Then all of a sudden he'd start off with, and we'd say, Elvis, please sing, please sing. And he'd say, no, I'm under contract. I can't sing a song for you. But then ever so often he would sing. Well, we sat on the floor and in a circle, the 4 of us, and Elvis, and he starts playing patty cake with Kay like a kid. I mean, that's in my letters to my aunt that I wrote about that evening. But anyway, we stayed till 2:30 in the morning, till Elvis said time to go. Now, anybody with cameras had to leave them by the door and leave their purses by the door. And he came out, and we didn't have a cell phone or a camera. And so I have no pictures, and he posed for pictures and all that. And we walked down to the street where Kay's mother was and got home about 3 o'clock. Now, 1 year later, I believe it was 1 year, I was driving a 1957 Chevrolet that was my mother's. And I told Mother, Kay and I were going to go out to the same movie theater. We were going to reenact what had happened the year before and then go out to Elvis's. And she said, whatever you do, you got to be home at midnight if you don't get in. And also remember, he won't ever remember your name. And I said, Mama, he doesn't even ask your name. You're just one of many. So she was just warning me that he was a wild boy. So truly, our feeling at the time was we were thinking of him as an older man. Mm-hmm. Little did we know that along came Priscilla at 14. But he did. He acted like a kid. And but that particular night, we went to the movie. I drove out to Elvis's. And nobody was there except 4 girls. I think they were probably college girls from Orlando. They had been there since 4 that afternoon, sending notes up to the house and saying, please let us in, please let us in. And Elvis would send back, they said, I'll let you in when nobody's there. And so we got there about, by that, probably close to 10 o'clock. And we waited, and Mother said, now it was a 40-minute drive for me. So she said, be home at midnight if you don't get in. I had to leave at 11:15. So we're talking to the girls and us, 6 of us. As I started the Chevrolet and pulled out to the highway, before I got out there, Graceland's gates opened, and the 4 girls ran in. And I put it in reverse, and Kay and I parked, got out, and chased after the 4 girls. We get up, and the door of Graceland is open, and all the lights are on in the entry foyer and outside. And a Thunderbird comes rushing down the other side of the circular drive. And I said, I bet Elvis is in there, and we'll see one of his guys. We won't see Elvis. So we go into the entry foyer, and here's a body in the living room in all white. He looks over his shoulders and says, hello, girls, and it is Elvis. I can't tell you how good looking he was, how wonderful he was. I mean, that's why people are in love with what he was and what he made as a young person. He came over to the 6 of us, and this one girl was crying and said, she said you won't even be here when we get here. And he said, that's all right, baby, I understand. And he hugged her. So he says to all of us, you know, I'm hungry, and I want to know, does anybody know how to make a peanut butter and banana sandwich? And Kay says, I do. We go into the kitchen, and he sits on the bar stool, gets a big glass of milk, and he tells Kay how to make a peanut butter and banana sandwich. She was chopping up the bananas and put peanut butter and mayonnaise on the bread. And he, oh no, I want them smashed, you know, like a jelly. So he smashed that, and he ate them, and really 6 of us stared. We were just in awe. Couldn't talk to him, just let him drink his milk and eat his sandwich. And then he says, well, let's go downstairs. we go downstairs and people are playing music. There must be his guys and girls downstairs. And that's about all I can remember from that night, is that we were still there till 2 o'clock in the morning, but I went to the house phone and I called my mother and I said, I'm pinching my arms. I can't believe I'm in Elvis's and he's here. I'm in Graceland and I don't know when we'll get out. And Mom said we had no cell phones in 58 by then. Anyway, he let us out again about 2:30 in the morning. Now, jump to March of 1962. I had gotten married to, by the way, I met Elvis and a week before I had my first date with my now husband of 63 years married. So I'm accused of being in love with Elvis before I met my husband. And some friends of ours said, you always loved Elvis more than Tony, didn't you? And I said, but he was an image. He wasn't the real man. Right. I knew how wild he was as a guy. But anyway, so what happened is we had Danny at the end of our first year of marriage, and I took him home. My first flight was coming back to Memphis in March of 1962 with my 3-month-old son. And I called up my friend Kay, and I said, Kay, I want you to come. I'm in town. Come meet my baby. And she said, I want to see your baby, but I want you to go to a party at Elvis's tomorrow night. I'm dating Alan Fortas. And his uncle was a Supreme Court judge. I don't remember, but Fortas was his name at the time. Anyway, so sure enough, I go the next day and I get a perm. I'm smelling like chemicals. We wear our hose and our high heels and dressed up, hair all teased up. And the kicker was only 10 girls were invited, but each could bring 3 friends. That was 40 were invited to this show party. Now, what's the show party? Elvis showed a black and white movie of Red Skelton that he thought was so funny. And so I was sitting on the floor. Everybody was sitting everywhere. And Elvis is on the sofa downstairs. And he had like 3 TVs on the wall and this little white thing for the movie. And so he's watching the Red Skelton show, so slapstick, and everybody's just staring at Elvis. They're not looking at the movie. So Elvis is laughing, is just cackling, and his guys start laughing, and then they're doing like this. You don't let the king laugh alone. Laughs, right? You better act like you think it's funny. So we're starting to laugh too. So after the movie, and all they served that night, we could have popcorn and soft drinks. But they would say, you want anything? Want some popcorn? And I'm telling you, there's, first his guys and the girls that were there, then all of these new people. Okay, so Elvis can play the music by ear. And one of the friends of Kay's was playing Harbor Lights on the thing, and Elvis came and sat next to her, and he kept scooting closer and closer to her that she was almost like this, and he was like playing and all, and I'm standing right at the end of the piano bench. And so when they finally quit playing, because he watched her play anything and he could play it right away. He had that ability. So when he got to stand up, I'm right there, and I didn't move. And he said, you want to dance? And I said, yes. Now, as luck would have it, one of his guys had come up to me when I got there, and he had gone to high school with my husband. And so he said, didn't you used to date Tony O'Neill? And I said, yes, but I'm married to him now. and he's an officer out in California, and he couldn't get off to come home. I said, I brought the baby home to be christened. And he said, well, what are you doing here at Elvis's? And I said, well, if my husband was invited to Aunt Margaret's, he would go. I said, Kay invited me. And so when I'm dancing with Elvis, it's a slow dance, and I'm stepping on his feet. I am nervous as can be, and I could hardly just breathe. And I look over his shoulder, and there is Jimmy Kingsley staring at me like, what are you going to do? I'm Tony O'Neill's friend, and I'm going to watch you. So then at the end of the song, Elvis dips me, and I'm back like that, and he goes to kiss me. Well, I had already watched him kiss all those girls next to him on the sofa during the movie. And they would swoon, and he'd kiss this one, then he'd turn and kiss that one. Also, I kept thinking, I'm married, but also, I don't want his germs with all those women. So anyway, I turned my cheek and whispered in his ear, you better watch out or my husband's going to shoot you. And so I'm not going to say what he says. I'm still being held back,
right.
And he's looking around. Well, where is he? Where is he? That's not what he called him. Okay, so I said, oh, he's in California. So he said, oh, that's okay. And he kissed me on the cheek and pulled me up. So then he says to everybody, I want to do a karate exhibition. Let's all go to the entry foyer. So everybody goes upstairs, and I'm sitting on the stairs that goes up to his bedroom. And I'm thinking, it's getting to be 1 o'clock in the morning now. And anyway, he's kicking red wrists and all that, and he splits his pants. So he's backing up the stairs past me, holding his pants and looking down like he's embarrassed. He thought it was funny as heck. So he's passing me and holding his pants together. And I said, Elvis, I've got to go home. I had a good time. I'll see you in California. And he said, not if I see your husband first.
So, Cosette, I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, and because we got to get,
That's it.
we got to get a couple others in here.
About the 1975 show, my mother got tickets for me and my husband because there was one show, and she got them, and our 2 sons, and we were on the balcony, and we had such a good time, and they said there's going to be another show. So I immediately called and got on the 4th row in 1975 for that show.
Down on the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But being with my husband, I contained myself and did not run up to the stage.
Well, one thing I wanted to say, you're such a dear lady, and I wanted to say to you that the thing that I found most interesting is the fact, and none of this has anything to do with Elvis, it has to do with you. I'm amazed at your memory. Your memory is phenomenal. The way you remember these things is
honey,
just...
I have told the story so many times. I tell it if I'm buying a chair at the furniture store, and I'll say, where are you from? And the lady, oh, I'm from Huntsville. I go, I'm from Memphis. Back in the 50s as I was a teenager.
It's going to be people like you that are going to be cornerstones for what we do. It's just telling those stories, and what I found so fascinating about your story is that what makes you different is that you were a resident in Memphis, living in Memphis, going to the high school that was across, was up the road from the high school that he went to. So
no, actually, it was Central.
Okay.
Central Memphis. It's called Central, and then Tech.
Okay.
What was a technology close to us.
Okay.
Where it was more kids in blue jeans, where ours was a preparatory high school.
Okay.
Button-down collars and dress pants and dresses you had to wear. Elvis was then downtown
Gotcha.
at Hughes. One other story, I was on a date with Tony, and saw a motorcycle guy about 10 o'clock at night or whatever. And I said to Tony, I said, catch up, there's Elvis. And he said, Cozy, not everybody on a motorcycle is Elvis. Right. I said, I know it's Elvis. And sure enough, he had a helmet on, but it was Elvis. And there were others coming, so.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It really has.
It's been fun.
And I'm just so thankful that you took time out of your day to come down here on a Saturday to talk to us and to, like I say, it's stories like yours that are going to be the cornerstones for these time capsules, because these are the stories that people need to hear. We know
what happened.
Right.
Let me tell you, every time I tell my little of what I think is to be able to have gone in, met Elvis, been in the house for hours. 3 out of the 4 trips we made, I couldn't go out there. It was, back then it seemed like too far away. But I am happy with what has been happened, that they turned it into open to the public.
Yeah.
That was, because the whole thing is, I just knew at the time what was happening, that I was there or even saw him on the street, was a momentous occasion.
Absolutely.
He's such an icon and not just like another singer. And that I'm happy, because also when I'm talking, I'm back there. In my mind,
Sure.
I'm reliving what.
Well, I'm glad that we had a chance to go back there with you.
Thank you.
So thank you. It was so
Yeah.
nice talking to you.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
so happy that you're doing this kind of thing.
You're very welcome.
Because we keep him alive.
That's right. Thank you, Cody.